This is Rob Morse of the Self-Defense Gun Stories podcast. I'm reminding you that this podcast is one of the many good ones on the Self-Defense Radio Network. Check out the other podcasts at selfdefenseradio.net.
Welcome to Unload and Show Clear, the podcast about all things IDPA. And now, here's your host, living proof that without practice, there's no limit to how little you can accomplish, Lloyd Bailey.
Welcome to another episode of Unload and Show Clear. This is a podcast about the men and women who compete in IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association. Now, I've been attending IDPA matches since 2011, and over the years, I've met some really amazing people thanks to this sport. Ignore all the colorful jerseys and the sponsor logos, and underneath you're going to find everyday men and women who volunteer their time and their effort and spend their hard-earned dollars on travel, match fees, and gear to make this sport great. And today you're going to meet another one of these awesome people. But first, I want to thank today's sponsor. Before we get started, let me tell you about GlockTriggers.com. Love them or hate them, the one thing you know about Glock pistols is that they are reliable. Out of the box, to the range, absolutely reliable. It's what makes them so popular with competitors, law enforcement, military, and responsible armed citizens. But one of the drawbacks is that stock trigger. Well, Jeff Wilson and the folks at Glock Triggers asked themselves, how do we make them better while maintaining reliability? Using stock parts as their foundation, they've refined the interaction of the metal parts to give you smoother take-up, a cleaner break, and reduced overtravel without sacrificing safety or reliability. Recommended and used by people like Bob Vogel, Travis Haley, and Ken Hackathorn, Glock Triggers custom trigger kits come with a lifetime warranty and a 30-day satisfaction guarantee. Visit them today at GlockTriggers.com and check out the Edge, the Vogel, the Skimmer, the Guardian, and the Hackathorn trigger systems. Use the promo code from this podcast, USC20, and save 20% off of your entire order. GlockTriggers.com. The highest quality drop-in trigger system for your Glock. Our special guest today is Rick Denny from Jacksonville, Florida. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lloyd. Thanks for having me. Appreciate all that you do for IDPA. Looking forward to visiting with you.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Tell us a little about yourself and what you do for a living there in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I am executive director of Trinity Rescue Mission in Jacksonville, which is a Christian-based mission for the homeless and addicted and hungry here in Jacksonville, Northeast Florida.
Very good. Well, God bless you for that. That's how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that about full-time, full-scale, about 9 years. I moved here about 4.5 years ago from Oklahoma City, where I was director of a mission there called Jesus House. And I moved here to Jacksonville to take this job about 4.5 years ago with my family.
Now, you mentioned that in a former life you had a very different profession. What drew you to this career path?
It was just it was a spiritual calling and just a deep sense of compassion, and also just a hatred for addiction, which is addiction is one of the big drivers towards homelessness in the United States. So I was an attorney previously, went to law school at the University of Oklahoma, Boomer Sooner, had my own practice, and got into a situation where I was looking for some extra time to practice law to fund my volunteerism at the rescue mission. So decided it may be a good opportunity to make a career change, and the opportunity presented itself, so here I am.
So where did the interest in guns come from? How did you get started with guns? You're growing up in Oklahoma. I assume you grew up around them as a kid, or was that something that as you got older you developed an interest in?
Yeah, it was something I grew up with as a child. I was born in California. My dad is, to this day, he's a huge hunter. And I always had guns from a young age. Some of my best Christmas presents when I was a kid were guns. Not so much pistols though until I joined the Navy, and I was on a small ship, a frigate on the West Coast, and part of standing watch included qualifying on a couple of handguns, and I really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed when we got to have range time, on shore or at sea, and always wanted to explore a further interest in handguns, but it never really presented itself. I never really followed up on that until much later.
Was much later, was that your introduction to competitive shooting, or what did you do once you got out of the military and in developing your skills as a civilian?
Yeah, well, I remained a hunter, and following the footsteps of my dad for the longest time. And right before I left Oklahoma to come to Jacksonville, I had this crossbow that I didn't want anymore, and I traded it for a Springfield XD9. And the guy told me that he got it to shoot an IDPA. He just never did anything with it. And I'm like, IDPA, what's that? So started looking into it and watched some videos. And in watching videos, I learned of Mike Seeklander's book and DVDs, Your Competition Handgun Shooting Program. Picked that up even before I moved here. And by the time I moved here, once I got my feet on the ground, I started looking for clubs, and I found a club to go watch a match.
You were in Seeklander's backyard, basically.
I was. I had to move all the way 1,300 miles away from Mike Seeklander to even know who he was. And then I caught him at Gainesville when he came here for a class. So I took his class. But yeah, I was right there near him the whole time, just didn't know it.
Do you remember the first IDPA match you went to, the local match?
I do. I went to watch. I left my gun at home. I just wanted to watch. I didn't know if I had the courage to get out there with those other people yet. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if it was going to be, these Blazers and a bunch of young guys or what it was. And I got assigned a squad to follow and observe, and Masad Ayub happened to be on that squad. Didn't realize
wow.
he lived in the area. So that was like a really big deal, and it was just really cool watching everything unfold and seeing more about. You can watch it on a YouTube video, but when you get out there and experience the camaraderie, the fellowship, all the good things going on, it was just I was hooked right away.
Where was that first match? What club was that with, and where was it?
It was First Coast IDPA in Jacksonville, Florida, which they used to be at a range called Gateway Rifle and Pistol Club. Now they're in St. Augustine, so they shoot in St. Augustine now. But back then, it was here in Jacksonville.
Nice. And what is your home club now? Give us a shout out.
I am the John the Baptist of IDPA. I don't think I have a club. I'm a stranger roaming in the wilderness. I go to First Coast IDPA a lot. I also go up to Valdosta at Little River Sportsman Association IDPA. I'm going to be shooting at 17 South in Fleming, Georgia. We're right here on the Georgia line. So I go to Orlando. I go to Lakeland. Flagler IDPA, which is where we host the annual sheepdog match. I go all over the place. I guess Little River in Valdosta and First Coast IDPA would be and Flagler. So I guess I've got 3 home clubs. It's hard to claim just one.
How long after that first local match? It's not every day that you go to your. I mean, we've had a couple of people give examples like this where their very first local match, there's some kind of an IDPA celeb there. And you get to see some of the biggest names of the sport at a local match. How long after that before you really got into it and decided to go to sanction matches, for example?
Oh, that's funny because my fourth IDPA match ever was the Florida State Championship. And as soon as I found out, as soon as I saw it, it was like, I've got to do this. And then I looked at registration. It was like, I went ahead and registered, even though it said you had to be classified as a marksman. I hadn't even classified. So I started looking for a classifier, and First Coast wasn't going to have a classifier before state. So I looked on the IDPA site. I saw there was a classifier being run in Douglas, Georgia, which was a couple hours away. So I signed up for it. I went up there, and Lloyd, it was 30 degrees, and the wind was blowing like 25 miles an hour. So the wind chill was awful. I couldn't feel my fingers or my toes. And needless to say, I was dejected and did not make marksman in that classifier. On top of the fact I had a stock gun and just some really crummy gear. I didn't know what I was doing. And Lee Turner, who's the match director at Little River in Valdosta, I just told him how dejected I was. I'd signed up for Florida State. I don't know how I'm going to make marksman now. And he said, hey, come to my club. We'll set up a classifier. We'll run you through a classifier. And I went out there when the temperatures were much better. And he showed me some gear of mine that needed to be corrected. And I got that marksman classification so I could get into Florida State. And of course, you can imagine how well I did at Florida State that first year, considering how awful the classifier was.
What an eye-opening experience that probably was.
Absolutely. And still to this day, that match had the toughest stage that I've ever seen.
Really?
In a match. It was a train stage to where there was this train that was on tracks, and as the train went by, you had to shoot through the windows at targets that were on the other side of the rail car. And still, when I talk to people all around, whenever I shoot, they'll mention that stage as one of the toughest they've ever seen.
What's your favorite division? What are you competing in most often currently?
Right now it's CCP. CCP's always been my favorite division. That same XD9 that I traded for when I first got into IDPA turned into a really cool little CCP gun, and that was that was, I guess, my favorite gun at the time. When IDPA did the rule change in 2017, that gun was left out of the rules, so I had to come up with something else. I've just found a gun that I really like in CCP right now, though, and it's that's what I've been shooting lately.
Which one?
It is the Walther PPQ M2.
Oh, nice.
The 4-inch, and the cool thing is another guy you should have on the show, a guy from Kentucky, Aaron Brolse, turned me on to the Walthers. I've got one that's the 5-inch and then the 4-inch, and the frames are identical, mags are identical, the slide assemblies interchange. So it's actually a gun that you can set it up by modifying the frames. You can shoot the two guns in 3 different divisions: SSP, ESP, and CCP.
Nice. So speaking of CCP, I understand, the match director for the Sheepdog CCP Championship. I
am. Yeah.
Tell us a little about how you became match director, and then give us a plug for the match.
I love CCP so much. Again, that was the division that really sort of got the IDPA hooks in me. And back when I first started, they used to have all these revolver specialty matches, and I always thought, how cool would it be if somebody could do a CCP specialty match? So it was just an idea that I had, and then a couple of years ago, I mentioned it to Rick Lund, who was the Florida state coordinator and area coordinator at the time, and I'd talked to Steve Canfield at Flagler to see if we could, if he'd be interested in doing a tier 2, and we could do it as a benefit for Trinity Rescue Mission where I work. And I got the green lights from everyone, and we got a lot of good people. Joe Hodges was co-match director the first year, and a lot of people came together. A lot of SO friends came together, and we weren't really sure how the concept was going to work, and we always thought that if we didn't have enough people register in CCP, because it's not a highly registered division at most sanctioned matches, so we thought if we didn't have enough, we would start opening it up to some other divisions. To our surprise, the first year we sold out in 5 weeks, not just as a tier 2, but as a tier 2 with tier 3 numbers. And we had a great logo, a great brand, a really cool T-shirt. I shoot matches all over, and all the way from California to every match in the Southeast, I saw our Sheepdog shirt. during that year. So it was really popular. We had participation from about a dozen different states that first year, and one foreign country had a shooter from Honduras. So it was just really popular, really took off. We set it up to do it again in 2018, and when the match opened, it sold out in 21 hours.
Holy cow.
Yeah, and same drill. IDPA has a rule that specialty matches have to be tier 2, so we could only run it as a tier 2, but we were running tier 3 numbers with a waiting list that if we registered everyone on the waiting list, it would take us to tier 4. That's how long our waiting list was. So
good grief.
After having, and we surveyed after each match, got really good returns and ratings on our survey. So this year we're looking to, in 2019, we're asking IDPA to look into repealing the rule so we can let the market demand what tier a match is going to be. And we're planning and hoping to make it a tier 4 in the first weekend of December 2019 and grow what we consider to be the largest CCP match in the world. So really excited about doing that. We'll have a new venue because of more shooters. We're moving the match to Valdosta, Georgia this next year. And we're really excited about it. It has taken off. It's wildly popular. And we're looking forward to seeing it grow to its full potential.
Had you run any matches prior to this? What was your experience?
No, my experience prior to this is so Trinity Rescue Mission does a clay shoot fundraiser, and I've run those in the past. And then just assistant match director when the match director's on vacation or something a couple times at
right
Valdosta. I think Flagler once I did it down there. So. No, nothing on that level before. I am an SO and a CSO, so I've worked sanctioned matches before and just kind of pay attention to what people do, and have had a lot of help with everyone from Rick Lund to other match directors that I know, like Larry Wheeler, Dwayne Charter, the whole Florida bunch. Joe Hodges has been a great help. Lee Turner is a great help. Everybody's really good. The community is awesome. In IDPA, everyone comes together to share their skills, talents, and abilities to put on these really good matches. And that's it's not just me; it's just a whole bunch of people that come together for a really fun match for a great cause.
I've talked to some people who worked their way up from some experience at the local club level and worked their way up to a sanctioned match. You had, sounds like, very little prior experience other than sporting clays and a couple of local matches, and you're running a match that's like you say, running tier 3, tier 4 numbers of people. What is that like? Talk about the preparation that went into setting that match up and organizing it and designing stages and the whole 9 yards. How do you start?
It's a lot of preparation. I think the IDPA match administrator's handbook's got a lot of good information in there. They've got checklists in there as to when to do this and when to do that, and just making sure you're prepared. Rick Lund was a huge help just by giving me the standard match director tools that you have to where there's a worksheet that helps you make sure that your stages are legal based on the number of steel and non-threats and shots required and all that. That makes it better. Having people that you trust who can look at stages and submit stages that know the rules, because it really is a team effort. And then, sometimes, you've got this great stage in your head. And then when you get it down on paper, it's like, I don't have the props to do this. So it's some of it's budgeting to make sure that you take, what's been the income you're going to make off the match, and you invest that into props and assets. And that helps you build it up too, helps you build a club.
Yep. So how did you farm out stage design? Did you do the stage design yourself?
Most of them, the first year, I think I did 8 out of 10, and then the second year I didn't do quite as many the second year, and the ones that I did, I really liked. Since I travel and shoot a lot, I'm always on the lookout for good CCP stages. So there was a stage that I used from a California match last year. The Coastal Carolina Challenge, which is back this year, their first shots has become the recurring first shots at Sheepdog. We've sort of changed that up a little bit and called it the Lone Wolf. But one of the things that we've made sort of our brand is our standard stage is basically the same, and it's a hard stage, and we want people to remember it, and that's one of the things we want to be known for, is that super difficult stage that you're either going to start or finish your match off with.
Oh, okay. What talk about what you look for in a good CCP stage? What makes a good stage from the shooter's perspective, or from a match director's perspective, and from the shooter's perspective? What are you looking for when you go out and you say, that's a good CCP stage, that one's not so good?
Anything that's really going to, so things like a round count, hardcover, steel, and non-threat placement. So with CCP's less forgiving the faster you try to shoot, because the barrel's shorter. You don't have as many rounds to waste or throw down range, or to save for makeup shots or whatever. So we're looking at tight ranges, hardcover. The first year we had tons of hardcover. And based off of the surveys, the shooters didn't like the hardcover so much. So we came back the next year with non-threats, and we reduced the hardcover, but we threw more non-threats in.
Darn you.
And then we did some really devious things, like put mini poppers in front of non-threats. Things to really make sure that you can't. We didn't want it to be a drag race, because you've got 140 shooters that are all in the same division, and we really want to make it challenging and test the fundamentals. And if you try to push too fast, remember, these are the types of guns that are being marketed for everyday carry. So we want to make the shooter feel challenged in respect to all fundamentals of shooting, and really focus on accuracy.
Very cool. What do you, as a shooter, what do you like to shoot? What are your favorite kinds of stages? Do you like the really, really difficult stages? Are you one of those people that like standards? Do you like a lot of movement? Do you like, very technical stages where you have to plan things out a lot? What do you, as a shooter, enjoy shooting?
I love walls and halls. Whenever there's walls up, fault lines where you can just run through there and run and move and shoot, just run, position up and pie and move on to the next. So shoot houses and hallways and all that stuff, that is just my favorite. And I'm better at those than as opposed to just standing still and shooting. And I love the feeling when I finish a stage like that, just the heart rate's going, the adrenaline's going, and it's just feels so good. That's the thing that really has me just hooked into the sport, is just that feeling that you get when you get to do a stage like that. It's just so much fun.
Describe one of your favorite stages that you've ever either designed or shot yourself. Something that you saw, that you experienced, that was a lot of fun, was just really inventive or really challenging, or that you just have a fun story about from the last 4 years of shooting IDPA?
Yeah, I think that for this past year, my favorite stage that we've ever put in a match was a stage, and I can't even remember the name of it. I think it was Crisscross or Crossroads, and it was a stage that we took from the Five Dogs action range. They did the Central California Regional last year, and it's a walls and halls, but it's also you've got some windows and the mini poppers. I got the idea for the mini poppers in front of the non threats from this California match that was held last year. And it's just a great stage. You just start at the point and you can go left or go right, and you have to clear a window, go to the corner and clear the targets. And one of the targets is a mini popper in front of a non-threat. And then you go the other way and do the exact same thing. And it's just, you have to think, because a lot of times people want to run and clear the window, run to the corner, and they forget that other window's there when they come back around the corner. And it's just fun. I love it when you have to think and remember what you're doing, and see the different ways that people stage plan for. You can look at a stage like that and say, well, there's only one or two ways that can be shot. But then if you watch people come through there, you can really see people get creative and how they do that. So, and that's always fun too, is when the shooters get to decide and they have options to solve a stage.
Well, here's a question you've probably heard me ask on with other guests, and it's the question that I say the percentage is getting better. Originally, it was like 1 out of every 10 answers was interesting, and it's getting a little bit better. Besides your gun and the holster and mag carriers and the regular stuff that you take with you to a match, is there something that you always take with you that you absolutely have to make sure that you've got in the range bag?
Yeah, and this is really going to sound silly, but there's this indoor IDPA match that's a couple times a month here in Jacksonville, and they and I get made fun of for this. They like to turn the lights out. There's some guys there that they bring their lasers and their rail mounted lights and all of that, and some of them have night sights and all that stuff. Well, I go to practice IDPA, so I don't have any of that on my IDPA gear. I just go for trigger time.
Right.
So inside my range bag is this redneck Jeff Foxworthy, Larry the Cable Guy, Bill mounted flashlight that I take. And whenever they turn the lights out, I turn that thing on and put my front sight under the spotlight, and still get my shots down range and practice my trigger time without having to put night sights on my IDPA gun. So I don't know where that fell in the interesting or not interesting, but I know they sure ribbed me a lot about it at that range, but I don't care.
Well, that's pretty cool. That's
yeah.
Makes you look like miners out there in the
exactly
on the range. So, final question as we wrap this up: what is it about IDPA that in the 4 years that you've been doing it has gotten you so motivated to be involved with not just shooting the sport, but traveling all over the country, to becoming a chief safety officer and a safety officer instructor, to becoming the match director of a large, well-attended sanctioned match? It's a lot of work. That's a lot of effort. It's a lot of time. What is it about this sport that motivates you to do all of that?
Oh, there's so many different things. I mean, one is it's just tons of fun. It is just so much fun. It's a great, safe way to play a game and exercise our Second Amendment rights. But the most important thing is the people. The people in IDPA are fantastic. It's like a family. There's great diversity in IDPA. I've made great lifelong friends that I never would have met or known if I hadn't have gotten to the range. And then some of those people that are, they're getting towards the ends of their IDPA career, that when I went to the range the very first time, they took the time to pour into me and to make me feel welcome and make me want to come back. And that's one of the things that drives me to be a match director and a safety officer instructor is I want to see more ambassadors of IDPA like the ones that lured me in and brought me into the fold. And I think we all have a responsibility to be like that and to help grow the sport because it's so much fun. And there's a lot of people who would love to get hooked just like us if they know about it and they have a good experience the first few times. And that's really what it's about. It's just sharing the love and giving back. and making sure we all have a good experience and have a blast doing what we love to do.
Well, Rick, thank you so much for first of all, for your service to our country. Thank you for everything you're doing for the sport, and continued blessings in your work with the rescue mission. Really good getting a chance to talk to you, and I look forward to the opportunity to see you down the road.
Yes, sir. This has been fun, and thanks for what you do for IDPA as well, Roy.
All right, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank our guest for coming on the show and our sponsors for making all of this possible. Take a moment, if you would, to check out the website, check out our show notes at unloadpodcast.com. We've got lots of interviews with more amazing guests like the one you heard today. Join our Facebook group at unloadpodcast.com/Facebook for all the latest updates and to connect with other fans of the show. And if you'd like to support the show, we sure would appreciate it. Consider becoming a patron at unloadpodcast.com/extra. I've got some full-length interviews and special content available there exclusively for patrons as well. And if you know somebody or you yourself would make an interesting guest for a future episode of Unload and Show Clear, please contact me at lloyd@unloadpodcast.com or click on the contact page on the website and send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Tune in again next time for another episode of Unload and Show Clear.